All right, welcome back. I want to ask you, did you rest? Did you contemplate? Did you plant any seeds? Today, we're going to gather some new insights, practice some more new skills, think some new thoughts together. So let's cultivate some more conversations. Yesterday, you remember we talked about the art of grammar and we introduced the idea that reading has different levels. And we talked a lot about elementary reading. Today, we're going to talk about the art of dialectic and we're going to explore what inspectional reading is all about. But before we get to that, I want to ask you a question. What's the highest aim of your educational endeavors? What is it that you really want to make sure that you do or cover or accomplish in your homeschooling with your children? I want you to consider this thought. The greatest part of education is instilling in the young the desire to be good, a desire that sharpens and shapes their understanding, that motivates and sustains their curiosity, and that imbues their studies with transcendent value. Today, we want to talk about Christian education. And I want to tell you, Christian education offers us hope. Hope that what we teach our children will mold them, setting them on the path to virtue and right living and right relationship. This is the desire that's beyond our pursuit of a Christian education. Cultivating a conversation is a Christian pursuit. But what does it mean to be Christian in our educational pursuits? What would you say? What does it mean to be Christian? Yeah, to talk about the Lord, to introduce our children to Jesus. What else? To be motivated by love. That's a great tenet of a Christian education. Somebody else, what does it mean to be Christian in our educational pursuits? That God is in the center of all we do, not all we do at church on Sunday, and not all we do at home when we're having our devotion, but in all we do as we teach our children at home, as we explore science, as we dive into literature, as we learn a foreign language, as we look back into history and forward into current events. He is in the center. I want to ask you another question. What demands does such an education make on us? A Christian education calls us to acknowledge truth, to adopt a Christian worldview, and to model the fruit of the Spirit. One of you said to base everything in love. There's your fruit of the Spirit. Education is a Christian pursuit when it acknowledges that truth is our beginning point and that we evaluate all of our ideas through the lens of a Christian worldview. Our education is a Christian pursuit when we draw our children winsomely to Christ by modeling the fruit of the Spirit, the love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control. What does it mean that Christian education calls us to acknowledge truth? I think we're talking about truth with the capital T, that God is the author of truth, that God is himself truth, and that we can find the truth about our world, our hearts, our futures in him. We need to adopt a Christian worldview. What that means is that you have a Christian lens through which you look at, that you understand the world, yourself, your sin, eternity, redemption, all from the standpoint of Christ and what he's done for us. And we are to model the fruit of the Spirit. A Christian education demands that we model the fruit of the Spirit, even as we pursue academics with our children. How can we be winsome as we present the Lord to our children? Yeah, I would say that we don't want to beat them over the head with the law and all the demands of Christian living. We don't want to share first with them all the oughts and ought nots. We want to be winsome and show the love and the mercy and the patience, the long suffering, the provision of God. And we want to model God's love in the way we love our children, in the way we lead our families, following Christ's example of laying down ourselves, our lives for others. Okay. Our aim is worship, you guys, in everything we do, not just in our Bible study. Our aim is worship even as we educate. Remember doxology? Remember the wheel that we looked at on the very first day? Look at the top. The doxology, the praise God from whom all blessings flow. That's the aim. That's where we're going, even with our education. Now, yesterday, we talked about that very first banner. We talked about the art of grammar and how we pursue that art of grammar, that vocabulary building, that underlying structure sensing that we use to give our students a firm foundation of knowledge. We talked about how we use stories, the telling and retelling, the reading and the sharing of stories to help our littlest learners build a foundation of knowledge. But we all know that our students don't stay little forever. So where does that art of grammar take us? Yep, it takes us right on down to the banner at the bottom of our circle that highlights the art of dialectic. The art of dialectic is all about making connections that lead to understanding by exploring and connecting pieces of information through the asking of great questions. How does it fit? Once we get a handle on what is it, as we pursue knowledge base through the art of grammar, we come to how does it fit? Where does it belong when we move to the art of dialectic? It's all about connecting the dots of information that are gained through the art of grammar in such a way that we get it. That's what dialectic is about. It's about asking questions, evaluating, comparing, contrasting, analyzing all of the stuff that we know, all of the information that we have grasped, and putting it together in ways that help us understand the world. As we pursue the art of dialectic, we are able to see bigger ideas or themes that run through events and discoveries and big ideas. We wrestle with ideas, we dig deeper, we push back. Our understanding grows, and as it grows, we're able to see the underlying themes that tie different disciplines and different ideas together. We gain a measure of understanding by asking questions and wrestling with ideas. So you might be saying, that sounds really good. When could I expect my students to arrive? When can I expect them to start making those connections? Of course, there's some general guidelines. But I want us to look at a graphic that makes it plain that we practice all of the arts at every stage of development. So you see, yesterday we started out with the art of grammar, and we discovered that really and truly our littlest learners, our Paul Parrott students, are most invested in grammar. But as our children grow and develop and become PERT stage students, which art is the darkest there? Yeah, the art of dialectic, you can see, is the darker art. Remember, that indicates the art of the trivium that's most naturally practiced, most happily practiced during that stage of development. So, our middles, our PERT stage students, our early adolescents are going to be the ones who really resonate with that wrestling, who really get into the asking of questions. And you probably already know that. I was getting ready to ask you, what are those PERT stage students like? What do they enjoy doing? They enjoy arguing. They will argue with the post, it feels like. They argue about everything. Things that they accepted just fine 6 months ago, they now want to argue about. What else are they like? They are very curious. They are curious about how things fit together, how things are related. They want to know about the causes and effects of different things. They don't take your word for it anymore. They want to figure it out themselves. They like that wrestling. Sometimes that feels really uncomfortable to us as the parent or us as the teacher. That desire to pick everything apart, it's uncomfortable to us, but it is exactly where the PERT stage student belongs, okay? Because look, we want them to become thinkers. So how do we lead them to become thinkers? We lead them to work as they're able. We need to think about, what can they do? What do they like to do? What do they naturally do? And you've given me lots of good ideas already. They like to ask questions. They like to argue. They like to see the cause and effect. They like to wrestle with things. They like to do a lot of the talking. You know, your littlest learners were happy to ask a question and wait for you to answer it. Your PERT stage students want to ask the question and answer it sometimes. Okay, sometimes you might think they just want to hear themselves talk. Okay, that's not it exactly. What they want to do is figure things out. And sometimes they are better able to do that when they process out loud. Now, sometimes these PERT stage students, they don't exactly know all the questions to ask. They know that there's a question out there that might help them wrestle an idea down, but they don't know how to ask the question. And so sometimes in their lovably obnoxious ways, they press us until we begin asking them questions, okay? We need to plant the seeds with these students of asking good questions. Because here's the thing. We need to plant the seeds, but we need to know, what are the seeds and how do we plant the seeds? Because I guarantee you, we plant the seeds differently with these PERT students than we did with the Paul Parrott students. So what are the seeds for these maturing students, for the growing students? Well, it's more complex ideas, new information, new ideas, additional memory pegs, yes, but activities, new tools, nuanced relationships. For our littles, everything is black and white. They are very concrete. They're not abstract thinkers at all. They don't want to know that good people can do bad things and bad situations can bring good from them. They're not ready to process complex ideas like that. But your PERT stage students are. They are beginning to experience that everything is not actually black and white. There's a lot of gray in the world. And they are being forced to examine lots of nuanced relationships. And because they've only ever thought in black and white, they're uncomfortable with this without the help that you can offer? How do you plant the seeds that will help them to grow? By asking questions, by calling attention to differences, by teaching correct forms of arguing. The truth is, as our students change, we as their educators need to change too. The way we deliver the seed, the way we deliver the information has got to change. If we want to meet our middle schoolers where they are, we need to get into the habit of becoming not the purveyor of truth, not the giver of all information, but the master question asker. We need to learn to ask good questions. So, what's the most helpful way to plant those seeds and to meet them where they are? A tool. Remember, we talked yesterday, we had a specific tool to offer our littlest learners, and it was names: naming, attending, memorizing, expressing, and storytelling. Well, I'm happy to share with you that there is a tool for our PERT stage students as well. Tools to help me plant. Look, the 5 common topics: definition, comparison, circumstance, relationship, and testimony. All right. As our children grow and develop as God designed them, the ways they take in information changes. To be most effective as teachers in the home, we have to change our methods to meet their changing needs. We become that master question asker, drawing them out and modeling for them how to ask good questions for themselves as they will continue to grow. These are the tools that help us deconstruct an idea for understanding. Remember, the art of dialectic is all about developing the understanding. So questions will help our students deconstruct an idea so that it can be understood. This tool is a fantastic way to begin asking questions. It fits almost every situation, every topic. It's easy to begin using even if you don't know what you're doing, okay? You can think about any topic that your student is interested in or is preparing to study, and these questions will help you to cultivate a conversation. Think about any topic your student might be interested in. Okay, I'm not talking about English or Latin or science. Any subject your student might be interested in: getting a job, going to camp, choosing a college, getting a pet. Right? Anything that your student might be interested in, you can use the 5 common topics to begin asking questions that will cultivate a conversation with your student. So, how do you help your garden grow? How can you help your home-centered education flourish? Look, remember, we want to give attention to our students. We want to cultivate conversations. We want to model the learning process. We want to use the tools. We want to practice using the 5 common topics to ask good questions. That will help us cultivate conversations at this stage of life. Now, I want you to think, what makes conversations different at this stage? What makes conversations with your PERT stage students different than the conversations with your littles? It can be intelligent conversation, okay? So they're not, they are talking more on your level, and there's a lot more give and take. You have a more common vocabulary. You can talk about more complex ideas using a more sophisticated vocabulary. You can have a deeper conversation. They are able to do some analysis and some evaluation and some comparing and contrasting of unlike ideas. Developmentally, they're ready for that, okay? Now, I want to ask you still, how are you modeling the learning process for your PERT stage students? What are you learning alongside your student? Are you willing to learn alongside your student? If your student is struggling with Latin, are you ready to jump in the trenches and conjugate verbs and decline nouns with them? Are you willing to learn the grammar? Are you willing to do some science experiments to learn some physics formulas with your student? Are you willing to learn to draw a map of the world by memory, by hand? How are you modeling the learning alongside your student? Are you modeling wonder or are you modeling fear? I can remember when my girls were approaching Challenge A, I talked about the drawing the map of the world like it was the best thing ever and how it was going to be the coolest skill and how I had all the confidence in the world that they would be successful. All the while thinking, I'm glad that's not me. I'm glad I don't have to do that. I can remember studying chemistry with our younger daughter, something I had hoped to never do again after I graduated. And I remember one of the most meaningful lessons that I taught her while studying chemistry alongside her had absolutely nothing to do with stoichiometry or the table of elements. I realized that in the heat of a moment when my comment was, hasn't your tutor gone over this with you? Didn't your tutor make sure you know how to do this? Why are you asking me this? And I heard those words reverbing in our kitchen. And I realized that what I was modeling for her was fear first, frustration, and the belief that it was someone else's job to teach her chemistry. And so I realized that was not a lesson that I wanted to teach. So I apologized and I said, it's not really your tutor's job. It's really Mama's job. And Mama's just worried because I don't remember how to do this. So let's go back and see if we can figure this out together. And then we'll both get it and we'll both move on. And I didn't realize how much she had internalized that lesson until she went off to college and ended up in a class for which she did not have the prerequisite skills. And I said to her, well, have you gone to talk to your advisor? I don't understand why they let you in this class. I'm not sure what you're going to do. They're just going to have to help you out. And she said, it's okay, Mama. I got this. And I said, well, did you go talk to your advisor? No, Mama. I looked at what I was supposed to know and I went online and found out how to do that because really it's my job to learn this. And I thought, wow, I'm glad that you learned that lesson faster than I learned that lesson. So what lessons are you teaching when you model learning alongside your students? All right. Let's practice with these 5 common topic tools ourselves so that we can see how they work and so that we're confident that we can go home and use these as question framing tools to cultivate some good conversations. We're going to use a poem from Old World Echoes called The Duel, and we're going to practice. Now, here are the 5 common topics, and they're called common topics because they will work to ask questions about any subject or any piece of information that you would want to study, and you don't even have to know the answer in order to ask a good question. So questions of definition will be pretty easy, pretty obvious. What is it? What words need to be defined? Do they need to be defined in multiple ways? Am I sure that I know the meanings of all the key words? What could be compared? All right. How is this thing that we're getting ready to study together like something that we've seen already? Or like something that you have read about? Or like something that I know that I'm willing to share with you? Comparison, circumstance. What else is going on? What else is going on at the same time as this idea that we want to explore together? What are the circumstances? What's the relationship? What came before this? What came after this? How are these ideas related? Is one a cause? Is one an effect? How are these ideas that we're exploring as new related to something that we already know about? Okay, testimony. I don't know much about this. Is there something that we can read about this? Is there somebody else we can ask about this? Is there an online resource? What do people who do know something about this idea have to say about it? All right, so we're going to use the 5 common topics to cultivate a conversation about this poem, The Duel. All right.